So I had a conversation today that really disturbed me. I was sitting and talking with a friend of mine, an old mentor of mine, and we were talking about business and life and stuff. We hadn't seen each other in 5-6 months, and we were just catching up, joking about how it's been 14 years since we met. And he told me about how it's his 22nd year in business this year. And I told him I was proud of him and stuff, and then he was asking me about my business a little bit. And we're in the same industry. He was my mentor coming up in the industry. I shared with him that in the last 5 weeks, there has not been a week where I worked more than 3 days in that particular business. I've done other stuff. I have other jobs, other businesses and stuff, but in that particular business, I haven't worked more than 3 days, and not even one full day in 5 weeks. It's incredible. I consider it to be one of my biggest accomplishments this summer. I'm so proud of it. And he got this very strange look on his face. And we talked a little more, and I asked him what was going on, and he looked at me and he said, "Lucas, I haven't worked less than a 6-day week in 3 years." In 3 years, this man hadn't even taken a 2-day vacation after 22 years of building up a business. My heart broke a little bit because, see, when I got into business, it was not to make a lot of money. It was to make money because I needed to pay my bills, but it was more about having the opportunity to live the life that I wanted, have the opportunity to do the things that I wanted when I wanted to do them, and to take on the projects that I wanted and not take on the other projects that I didn't necessarily want to do. And he looked at me and he said, "Don't hire too many staff." And I looked at him, and I mean, this is a conversation we've had a lot of times, and he said, "If I could go back and do it all again, I would do it like you're doing. I would keep it as just a lifestyle business. I would keep it small." And it made me think about how important it is to pay attention to what it is that you want out of life when you're making the decisions. You see, for my friend, he got into business because he wanted to be in business, and he made the business decisions that he thought he needed to make. He did the best he could, there's no question about it. But along the process, he was so focused on providing for his employees and delivering top quality for his clients and doing everything for everybody else that he forgot to pay attention to what he needed out of the business. He forgot to pay attention to what he wanted out of the business. And as a result, everybody has gotten what they wanted out of the business except him. And now here he is 22 years later, tired, should be long since retired. He deserves to retire so much. And yet he's trapped in his business. And he said to me, "Sometimes it's not as easy to get out when you're this far in." And it reminded me of a conversation I had a couple weeks ago with a friend of mine. We were talking about living situations. Because you see, my current living situation it's less than ideal. I live in a very small place. It doesn't even have running water. It's not super comfortable. It's just not ideal, but it's really cheap and it serves my purpose. And I was having a conversation with my friend who told me, like, "Lucas, why don't you just go get an apartment? There's lots out there. You could just go and have a place." And I told him I could. And that's always been an option. And it's something I consider on a fairly regular basis. But at this point in time, this works. And this is getting me closer to where I want to be. This is helping me pay off the debts that I need to. This is giving me the flexibility financially and personally to live life the way I want to live it. And so if I just went and got an apartment, it would get me a little bit farther away from what I didn't want, but it wouldn't necessarily get me towards what I do want. In fact, it may even get me farther away from what I do want, because suddenly I would have bigger financial commitments. I would have more hassle on my hands. I would have a bigger house to clean. I would have all kinds of stuff that would take my time and energy that I just don't have right now as a result of making the decision that gets me closer to what I want. And I thought about that in the context of the conversation I was having with my friend. And I realized that all along, he had been so focused on making making sure everybody else got what they wanted out of his business, that he forgot to focus on what he wanted. And as a result of that, he wasn't able to make the decisions that would get him closer to the life he wanted. And now he's stuck in a life that he never set out to create. He's stuck in a position where he feels trapped and he feels tired and stressed out, and he doesn't want to be. I could see it in his eyes, and it broke my heart. But it got me thinking, and it's like, this is exactly why it's so important to pass every decision you ever make through that filter of, is this getting me closer to being the person I want to be? Or is this getting me farther away from being the person I want to be? It's so important to pay attention to that, because it's just like if you go on a trip, right? If you go on a trip and you punch an address into your GPS, the GPS is going to tell you the directions to get there. Or if you know the address where you want to end up, you can look at a map and you can figure out how to get there. But if you go on a trip and you just leave, and you don't pay attention to where it is you want to go, there's an almost 100% chance that you are going to end up somewhere that you didn't want to be, like my friend. And life is like that too. How often do we make decisions based on how we feel right now, or reactionary decisions, getting away from what we don't want as opposed to moving towards what we do want? How often are we trying to escape temporary discomfort at the expense of accomplishing what it is that we've set out to do in this world? And I just think that's a super important thing. Keep your GPS, keep your internal GPS in your brain calibrated, and really pay attention to what it is you want out of life, what it is you want to accomplish, what it is you want to create, and how it is you want to live. What does your dream day look like? And don't wait for someday to retire. Don't wait for some perfect storm of things to come together to make it happen. Start working on making it happen now. Pass every decision you make through that filter of, does this get me closer? And if the answer is no, think really hard about whether it's worth making that decision. Because you only have so many hours in the day. You only have so many days in your life. And the older I get, the more I'm realizing you don't get the time back. You don't get the opportunity to do it again. So make those decisions now. Because man, I can't even imagine how painful it would be to wake up one day and realize you're 55 years old and you're stuck living a life you never wanted to live because you were so busy trying to give everybody else what they wanted that you forgot to give yourself what you wanted. It's okay to be selfish in this world. You have to be, because nobody else is going to be selfish on your behalf. So think about that when you're making decisions and when you're considering what the next move is. Really ask yourself, is this getting me closer or farther away from what I actually want?